Hey Dice Gang, let's do more Kara-Tur reimagining. Let's do D&D's Indonesia, the Island Kingdoms. To be honest, this is probably one of the weakest entries among the Kara-Tur nations, if not the weakest. It is also a prime example of the old adage, just because you could, it doesn't mean you should. Yeah, sure, they could certainly add this archipelago nation to their list, but it is really just a one big pile of boring nothing. Like its real-world counterpart, it has a lot of spices, there are a lot of islands, but it is just concentrated on a small handful. And it sounds so mundane, just like another generic kingdom. But islands! There are pirates, but there's nothing special about them either. And look at this, they don't even care about this place enough to draw a map of it, besides the tiny main island of Bawa, which is their version of Java, in a separate box. I'm not even sure where it is supposed to be in Kara-Tur, so I really don't see the point. The Island Kingdom is like the Kara-Tur's counterpart of Tybalt, one of Magic the Gathering's worst planeswalker card ever. The designers made this card just because they thought they could make a 2-mana planeswalker, but they later realized that it is completely awful. Nobody liked it, because they were just trying to prove a point. Just because they can cram the island nation into Kara-Tur, it doesn't mean they should, because there is nothing inspiring about this pile of generic tribal island kingdom. And here I am, thinking that D&D is supposed to be a fantasy RPG. I've lived in Indonesia for a period of time, and I think I can do much better than this. But before I start reimagining, here is a quick history lesson, and a bit of comparative religious study. Let's start with the name Indonesia. Indonesia is a name created by the English ethnologist George Windsor Earle. It means Indian islands in Greek. Well, obviously, Indonesia is not India, but it is easy to understand why they call it that, because even though Indonesia is the most populous Islamic nation in the world now, many of the powerful kingdoms that used to rule over a large swathe of islands in Indonesia used to be Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms. Kingdoms like Sriwijaya, Mataram, and the mighty Majapahit were Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms. So that's why when European explorers went there, they said, well, this looks like India to me. But islands? Well, maybe they said that. Or maybe they said something else, but you get the point. If you want more information on Majapahit, you can go watch extra credits series on that kingdom. I will put the link in the description below, but you can do it after you finish this video. The thing about Indonesia is that they like to do things their own way. The term Hindu-Buddhist is used because they just mesh those two religions together. And they even introduce new flavors by adding their local gods into their Hindu pantheon. Sometimes they even invented one wholesale. In the original Indian Hinduism, they have 3 supreme divinities: Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. But in Balinese Hinduism, their supreme god is Asintya, the inconceivable. And all the other gods are believed to be his manifestations. In Javanese Hinduism, the supreme god is Batara Guru. There are also other gods that don't exist in Indian Hinduism, like Barong, the king of spirits, his enemy, the demon queen Rangda, and Samar, the ugly but wise counselor of heroes, and so on. There are hundreds of different ethnicities and cultures in Indonesia, so you can find as many variations as there are customs and traditions. This alternate pantheon is going to be the main theme for my reimagination. But before I start reimagining, I want to introduce an interesting cultural concept from Indonesia. Musyawarah Mufakat. This is Indonesian-style consensus decision-making. In Western democracy, decisions are usually made by casting votes, and the option with the most votes is chosen. The losers usually don't get anything. But in Musyawarah Mufakat, the concerns of all parties are heard and everyone will try to reach a decision that everyone agrees with, without leaving out the minority voice. For example, if someone in the community want to renovate his home into a grocery store and his neighbor don't like it because it will ruin the village tranquility, they may get the elder to start a musyawarah involving the affected parties and other members of the community. After letting everyone voice their concern, they will try to form a decision that everyone agrees with. Maybe the home renovator can negotiate his case by opening a really small-scale mom-and-pop shop or compensate the neighbor for that inconvenience. But it is also possible that the rest of the community may think that the convenience of having a shop in their neighborhood outweighs the minor inconvenience of some of the other neighbors, and they may just require the renovator to compensate the affected neighbor with a small sum of money. With this type of decision making, nobody is completely left out. Of course, in real life, things may get more complicated, especially when there are just too many participants, and sometimes it just takes too long to reach a single consensus decision. Okay, using these cultural inspirations, this is how I'm going to reimagine the island kingdoms. A calamity is coming. The island kingdoms have had 1,000 years of peace and tranquility, but the cycle of destruction that comes every millennium is rearing its ugly head. All the good luck and positive energy the island kingdoms experience for 1,000 years will be balanced by a single colossal destructive event spearheaded by the momentary return of the god of destruction. The nobilities, the rich, and the powerful have all moved to other nations to wait out the disaster. But the old, poor, and weak are left to the mercy of the gods because they can't afford boats large enough to sail them all the way to the continent. Fortunately for them, the gods do care for their worshippers. The gods of the most powerful pantheon will create a protective barrier to protect their own worshippers from the destruction. But they can only take a limited number of believers. Meanwhile, you and your party's family are all out of luck, because the local deity you worship is not part of the pantheon. And he is quite the insignificant minor god too, the god of finding misplaced objects. So, he can't really do much. But luckily, somebody from the village has a cunning plan. What you have to do is to inject your local god into the pantheon so that the villagers would be protected too. The village has a special unique spice. After consuming it, your party and the minor god will be knocked out and your spirits will be sent back in time. If you take the right amount in the right location, you can appear during an important event in the gods' past and gain their favor by helping them. For example, if you help them with their fight against a certain demon queen, they will be really impressed. And if you keep it up and help them with other legendary events, then you can eventually raise the status of your own god and ingratiate him into the pantheon. And maybe if you are doing really well, you can become a minor god too. So practically, it is a stoner road trip campaign where you rewrite history by goading your friends into doing silly things. It can also get interesting when the player characters realize that the written legend is often very different to the reality. And maybe if you are doing really well, you can empower the whole pantheon to be able to fight back against the god of destruction itself. So what do you think? By the way, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity when they don't have anything on Philippines in Kara-Tur, even though there is a really large Filipino community in America. But if you want some Philippines-related contents, you should check out the Island of Sinauna Indiegogo campaign. I'm not getting paid to say this, I just think that what they are doing is pretty neat. The campaign is over, but you can use the page to stay updated until they release their books. By the way, if you want more content from me, remember to check out my other channel where I cover real history from Asia and other parts of the world. Cool History Bros. CJ, over and out.